The evening sky over New York's John F. Kennedy Airport was cloaked in a veil of tension. The usual hum of travelers with their hurried footsteps and anxious voices filled the terminal. Yet something was amiss. For Detective Sam Carter, a seasoned officer with the NYPD, the air felt heavy, suffused with a sense of danger, as though a storm was waiting to break. He was well acquainted with the ominous feeling that precedes a criminal act, but tonight it was different. His gut told him that something larger was in play, something darker, something that could shake the very foundations of the city. Unbeknownst to the thousands of people passing through the bustling terminal, a notorious criminal was about to walk among them. A man named Vincent Drago, one of the most dangerous figures in the underworld, was not just a killer and a rapist. He was also the mastermind behind a large-scale drug trafficking operation, and tonight, he was preparing to flee the country to vanish into the shadows before anyone could catch him. Drago, though a man who had survived multiple police investigations, would not escape this time, not on Sam's watch. The flight boards flashed overhead and the fluorescent lights flickered, casting a ghostly glow over the scene. Drago's flight was set to leave in just under 2 hours. He had everything planned down to the last detail. A quick getaway, no ties left behind. But Detective Carter had one thing that Drago didn't instinct, and tonight, that instinct would be the key to stopping him. At the security checkpoint, a young female security officer named Laura Jensen was carrying out routine checks on passengers. She had been working at the airport for just over a year, but she was no rookie. Her eyes had seen the subtle nuances that most would miss: the quick, nervous glances, the twitching of a man's hand as he reached into his bag. As she scrutinized the passengers, her attention was drawn to one man, Vincent Drago. His face was covered by a pair of dark sunglasses, but his posture gave him away. There was a certain stiffness, a practiced calm that screamed of guilt. He was too composed. Laura's heart raced as she made the connection. The criminal mastermind who had eluded law enforcement for years was standing right in front of her. She did not hesitate for a second. Her fingers flew to the silent alarm button under the counter, her heart pounding as she triggered the alert. She had just sent the signal when Drago's eyes met hers for a brief moment. His cold, calculating stare sent a chill down her spine. For a fleeting instant, she thought she saw recognition in his eyes. Then the moment was gone. He turned and walked away as though he had not just been marked by the sharp eye of law enforcement. But Laura knew better. The game was on, and Vincent Drago was already running. Within minutes, the response team arrived. Officer Carter, along with his trusted canine partner Max, a German Shepherd trained for drug detection and apprehension, was on the scene. Carter's eyes scanned the terminal, noting the nervous faces of the people nearby. He could feel the tension in the air. Their target was somewhere in this very crowd. "Max, find him?" Carter commanded, his voice low but firm. Max's ears perked up, his nostrils flaring as he began to sniff the air. His eyes were sharp, his instincts razor-honed from years of service. Carter and Max moved swiftly, weaving through the terminal, following the faint scent trail that Max had picked up. Carter knew they didn't have much time. Drago was smart. He would know they were coming. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed in the hallway as Drago, unaware of the looming threat, moved further into the terminal. But it didn't take long before Max's powerful jaws caught hold of the scent. With a sharp bark, Max charged forward, Carter hot on his heels. Drago's nerves were on edge. He could feel it. He was being watched. The instinct that had kept him alive for so many years in the criminal world kicked in. He knew he had moments, maybe seconds, before the authorities caught up with him. His flight was still on the schedule, but the air had thickened with the realization that his escape was no longer guaranteed. Without looking back, Drago broke into a run, dodging past confused passengers who barely had time to react. His black leather jacket flared behind him as he sped toward the gates. But he wasn't going to make it. He knew that now, the dogs would be on his tail soon enough. Max's barking grew louder as the canine unit closed in. The sound of claws against the floor echoed as Max cut through the crowd like a bullet, and Carter was right behind him, navigating the sea of people with ease. Drago's breath came in sharp, panicked gasps as he veered to the side, trying to lose them in the mass of bodies. But the canine was faster. Max's training honed for just such a moment gave him the edge. The dog's nose was relentless, his focus unbreakable. In a moment of desperation, Drago made a dangerous decision. He darted into a nearby store, seizing a young child who had been holding her mother's hand and threw her over his shoulder. The child screamed in terror as Drago held her tightly, pressing his arm against her neck in a choking grip. "Stop right there!" Carter shouted, his hand reaching for his weapon, but Drago had the child, and that changed everything. No longer just a fleeing criminal. He was now holding an innocent life hostage. "Stay back! Don't make me hurt her!" Drago shouted, his voice shaking but laced with menace. Max growled, inching forward, but Carter knew they couldn't act rashly. One wrong move and the child's life could be over. The terminal was a blur of motion as Carter assessed the situation. His heart raced, but his training kept him grounded. He needed to remain calm, no matter how much he wanted to rush in and end this. Max was still growling, locked on Drago's position. Drago's eyes darted around, desperate for an escape route, but there was no way out. The authorities were closing in. Carter could feel it. Then, without warning, Max lunged. The German Shepherd's body slammed into Drago with all the force of a freight train, knocking him to the ground. The child fell from Drago's arms, landing safely on the floor. Drago struggled to get up, but Max had already latched onto his arm, holding him down. "Drop it!" Carter barked, his weapon trained on Drago's face. Drago knew it was over. Max's growls subsided as the criminal was subdued, handcuffed, and led away. The child was safely returned to her mother, tears still streaming down her face, but safe. In the aftermath, as Drago was escorted into the back of a squad car, Carter and his team began their investigation. Inside Drago's bag, they found a small arsenal, multiple bags of heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine. Along with that, there was a pistol, stacks of cash, and several forged documents. Drago's criminal empire was vast, and this was just the beginning. Detective Carter stood over the evidence table, taking it all in. Another monster was off the streets, but the work wasn't done. There were others like him out there, other criminals to track down, other lives to save. As the night wound down, Carter took a moment to honor his partner. Max had not only saved a life, but had also brought an end to one of the most dangerous men in America. The K9 was a hero, and his dedication to his job had made all the difference. The ceremony was small, but heartfelt. Max stood proudly by Carter's side as the city recognized the dog's valor and bravery. It was a fitting tribute to the partnership that had just brought justice to the streets of New York. And as they walked away from the ceremony, Carter knew that no matter what lay ahead, he would always have Max by his side. The war against crime wasn't over. But for tonight, one villain had been taken off the streets thanks to the courage of a detective and his canine partner.